as we push into the second turn here. I've got Napoleon switched from Kilmaine to Messina. He wants to make sure these guys get moving effectively. I am keeping Augureau in command because, for one thing, if I may want him to have initiative so he can slam this artillery without fire, but also I can take some actions in trying to roll up the flank. Cav would be nice to have active, but I only get two auto activations, and I'll probably get a full activation out of them, at least one, and then the half. For the Austrians, I have to make a check for an order delay. Now he has an order delay of 4, which means I believe if I roll a 4 or less, I'm okay. I think. We got to check the overall commander. Used to change orders. Yeah, thanks. That didn't help. So I have to find the rules on orders. Not the best reference in this case. If I want to change, luckily there aren't a lot of rules, which always makes things easier. The smaller the rules, the easier it is to find what you need. But I'm not seeing it. Unfortunately, these rules sections are too large. I thought the rule book was good when I was reading it, but So I'm not seeing the orders delay here. It's over here. If an orders command has no orders, the player wishing to put it under orders, to do so, the player rolls a die and compares it to the orders rating on the activation marker just drawn. No, that's not it. Each scenario provides an order delay. In the orders phase, other than the first, the player can roll a die. If the die roll is less than or equal, the player can issue new different orders to all commands. Okay. So, yeah. And then I'm going to have a marker. Okay. He gets a success, so he can issue orders wherever he likes them. Now, right now, I have him over here on Sherbets, which I'm not sure who he is. I think he's this color. I can't really read, but I think it's this guy. These counters are really, really tiny print. You'll see this with a lot of the earlier and some of the more recent GMT things. A lot of information on the counters, some of it less useful than others. I don't feel like I really need him to be in command. I don't know what I need to be in command. The Cav is kind of beaten up. He's not. I think I'm not allowed to rally without orders. Well, no, that's not listed here. I thought rally was something you do in a... Yeah, I guess I can do it whether I'm under orders or not. Not that that's really something I need to do. I kind of feel like this guy is the linchpin right now. But it may be this guy because I may need to move him more. I'll pick the blue guy. So that is Minsky or Mitrovsky or something like that. All right, and now we initiative. Both players roll a die. Somewhere it's going to tell us what we add. Probably command. Nope. There's got to be some kind of modifier to this. the orders rating. See, it's not, everything's not spelled out that you might have here. But yeah, so that gives Napoleon essentially a +1 to the die roll. He does not win it, the Austrians get it, so the Austrians get to pick what they would want to move first. I'm going to move Pinky here, and I'm going to take his crappier chit, because I don't think I really need him under command at this point. And I'm going to try to get out of there. The first thing I get to do, though, is unleash this artillery and the thing in front of me, and I may end up destroying it there. Let me put some chits away. And I don't know if I'll come back for the artillery die rolls. I haven't actually showed many of them. Let me take care of that, because that's the first step after those chits get put away. Because I haven't done too many of these. So and I haven't done them correctly, I don't think. He's got a 3 strength, he's at range 1, so he gets +4 total to his die roll. I don't think terrain is going to have an effect here. Well, I don't know, it looks like I'm downhill. I bet you that does. That has no effect, does it? Up 1 elevation level has a -1. Actually, I think I'm uphill. I think this is a little crest. Okay, so no effect. So +4 to the odds chart, or to the artillery fire. I get an 11. That's going to be a disorder check on this guy. If he fails this, he routes. He succeeds. And now I throw the chits in the cup, and I try to figure out what to do with this little command. It is on an edge. It is in command, which means I should have checked that before I fired, but I think I'm allowed to fire artillery either way. In my view, this is time for Cav to do what Cav likes to do. Now, there's a problem with this. See, there's got to be a charge marker in here. I'm going to mark him as charging. He's going to be hitting this unit. Might end up forming up into a square. Here, I got to pull away. I don't think there's a cost for leaving a zone of control, is there? Yeah, there's a +1 to leave a zone of control. I've been kind of ignoring that, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's pull back a little bit. My artillery is already fired. Now here's the question. Do I want to stand like this, or do I want to whip it around? It's screwed pretty much either way. I'm going to turn it around because this Cav can destroy me from the rear and I can't fire on it. I'm hoping to break this up, but there's things that'll be coming from the front anyway. Yeah, I'm not able to protect my gun until I can get some units into there. So I don't know. Okay, I'll leave it facing this way. Maybe I'll get another shot, I don't know. I could actually move it half. That would get me out of some of the range. That might be my best move. So going downhill doesn't cost anything. This guy's facing this way, so I can kind of run 1, 2, 3. At least, I don't know. At least it's got some chance of getting a shot if the Cav charges. Now, notably, this Cav, nothing is going to be able to protect these infantry. This is a very small unit, so that's all it's activating. I do have to make a check to see if I go. And I succeed. A 7 is pretty easy to make. This guy has to make a check to see if he goes into square. And he does. I think he's allowed to while he's disordered. If not, he's in trouble. Nope, he's disordered. He can't save himself. So I get an attack against him. Let's see what that means. I don't have to worry about pulling out or whatever. Strength is the same, so we're not going to get a modifier there. The cohesion, shit, I forgot to add that last time. I got a +1 cohesion for the Austrians. This is light cav charging. That puts me to +2. And that's it. But, you know, a couple pluses, it's worth making the attack is basically how I see it. So I get a 6. The defender automatically disorders and makes a retreat cohesion check. Now, did I move in front? I think I... Oh, he's already disordered. He routes. I think I had to move here. I could turn so that I don't have to attack this unit too, because that would cause me real problems. We need a route marker. I think route is 2 hexes. I don't remember much of anything. That's no big shock. One hex. And I must advance. I'll advance into here, and I think I'm allowed after advancing to change direction. That would be normal for yeah, I can change facing afterwards. So we'll swing around this way so that these guys can't just attack us. But, you know, well, these disordered guys are going to probably not attack, I hope. And I think that's that activation. One thing to note, you got, even in this small battle, quite a few chits in the cup, because you got 2 per unit, and the units aren't terribly big. Turns have a lot more activations than you're used to, perhaps, in most chit pull games. I don't know if that's good or bad. I kind of like aspects of the greater randomness that I think throwing the extra chits in gives you. Euro comes up next. Now I marked these 2 units for rally. I'll take care of them at the end of the thing, at the end of the activation. I'm not sure this guy can though, because he's adjacent to something. That's often a problem. No, he can't. And he's routed, so I can't do anything with him. I'm just using these counters because I don't use many of them up there. I should have something to mark what I'm rallying. I can check this guy now. There's no problem with doing that. He's only got a rally of 4. He gets a 5, he's not going to rally. Now, under the new rules that are present in Borodino, he would be removed from the board for that. He's left the field under those conditions. I don't really like that. I like the idea of something kind of mulling around for a while. Although, with 1 hour turns, which is, I believe, what they are, it doesn't look like they... It looks like they're kind of random how long they are. So these are like 1 hour and 15 minutes up here. It looks like they're... yeah, about 1 hour and 15 minutes a turn. So... if turns are indeed that long, and with the 2 pulses they kind of seem like they are, it might make sense that they would disintegrate in that time. But I kind of like these rules, so I'm sticking with them. Okay, here we have infantry attacking cav. The cav is able to withdraw without any restriction as far as I can see. Doesn't have to make a roll or anything. I pretty much had to turn to attack, though, to drive the cav off, just because it was hard to get out and then do anything with it. My artillery didn't do anything to soften this line. So these guys can just retreat 2 spaces, and I guess change facing if they wish. And I don't know if I want to be in that direction. I like this direction better. Let's actually get up into those breastworks. And then I don't know if the attacker gets to advance after that. This part's kind of cav may retreat 1 or 2 hexes. Must make the decision before a commitment roll is made. Okay, so, and the attacker may advance if he wishes. Seems like a good idea because it'll cover this routed unit. Okay. Elsewhere, I have a chance of making the... I actually made the commitment roll beforehand. I have a chance of going in here. I do not again. So, I think that is Auguro's command. And we'll go to another chit. And, need to plug in, it looks like. Here we're on something weird. The French picked up Desponos. Or Despanois. I don't know. I can't really even see all the letters, so I can't tell you. So, I gotta look at the reinforcement. And I have to roll, if I roll higher than that unit may enter starting with its next activation number. So, I'm not quite sure why the less capable leaders on the field, or the less capable chits, allow you to come to the field quicker. I'm trying to make a decision, is that just an errata? Is that just an error that should be in the errata? I didn't see any errata on this. Or could it be some kind of concept like these are, the more effective commanders may actually be busy doing something else. So I'm going to play with it by the rules as written, but I do have some questions on there. So that was higher. So he's going to come in. Now, I don't have an easy way to mark, because he doesn't just come on the field at this point. It means his next chit is an effective one. So I'm going to put him up here to indicate that he is an available reinforcement for this next one. And there goes my battery connection. Yeah. We have an activation here where I've got some light cav that's going to be charging to the rear of these guys. They're lights as well, so they're not going to have a chance to do anything too exciting. So if I make my pass, which I do, I come in. I've got 2-to-1 odds. That gives me +2. I'm charging lights. That puts me to +3. And I'm hitting him in the rear, which brings me to +5. And you can see how kind of this doesn't feel like I'm getting a lot of details going on. It feels, I don't know. All right, well, defender gets disordered, and he gets a retreat cohesion check. He was pretty much disordered no matter what, I guess. He fails that, so he's going to have to retreat, and I must advance. Now, again, in the newer version of the rules, the cav that charged should be disordered from that. And I got a rally check on these guys, because they didn't do anything. They've got no chance of being destroyed by a rally check because their quality is too high, but they do have some chance of not succeeding, which is what we saw here. And I pulled my artillery back to get it out of the way of these guys, basically. Okay, a couple of chits brought Widdenfeld successfully onto the board. Now, I've got this reinforcement EM on here. That's kind of unnecessary because he's already used both his chits, so I can actually just discard that. But if he had a chit remaining, he would still be under reinforcement orders, which means he can use extended movement, double movement allowance, as long as he doesn't get close to the enemy. And I'm pulling him in to help screen the withdrawal back here. Remember, this is only turn 2. For this scenario, what is it? Is it the first 3 turns, or is it... Yeah, next turn I can start heading off the board with the Austrians. And that's the victory condition. It's going to be really tough for the French to wipe out this Austrian army to the degree that's necessary for a victory. This is not an easy scenario for the French. So I come back to the game with a little bit of Black Butte Porter. I had about a half glass of that. I don't like to drink too much beer at once when I'm just at home. But this is from my days in Eugene, Oregon. became kind of a favorite of mine. I'm able to get it every now and then. Very, very good. Some nice undertones, goes very well with the pipe. Just outstanding. Just wanted to point that out for no particularly good reason. Doing a bit of a withdrawal in this game is somewhat more oh, now I'm losing my words. It's easier. Couldn't think of the right way to put that would sound proper. It's easier than it is in a game that has facing and, you know, all kinds of worries about that. So I'm just swinging Mitrovsky back up here because I'm going to be pulling out very shortly. I threw most of the chits with these units beginning to push back and try to fall away from the French. I don't think I need the stiffening of the line. You can kind of see it's closing up over here. These guys also kind of swinging. I'm sorry, they didn't go. Messena is putting a threat into position. There's some question in my mind: do I want, you know, to leave my infantry units stacked, because stacked they're going to have more shock capability, but unstacked they don't have a lot of capability to dislodge the enemy in any sort of way. Also, smaller units like this are almost useless on their own. Of course, this is just a Jaeger, but they're really not able to do a whole hell of a lot. But the danger is anything stacked is vulnerable to the artillery. Even if I just throw a Jaeger unit in with a regular, I'm increasing the odds of the artillery with the massed unit modifier, which I think is 2. No, it's only 1 per unit, per extra unit. Okay. That's the big thing. Aguero is managing to punch us back, the Austrians. This is a particularly tough scenario because it's hard to wreck units, to destroy them. You have to keep hitting them. They won't just fade away. So I guess they could run off the map or something. But the routed units aren't. This may be why the bouncing routes or rubber routes are so disturbing to some people. Is if they played this scenario and couldn't destroy enough of the enemy's formations. I think I do see a little bit of that change, at least, where if you fail your rally roll, from route at least, it should always take you to you disintegrate. And that may be what I saw, rather than the disorder one. It's the route one where it's the 2 times your disordered cohesion. Well, 2 times disordered cohesion, well, that can't fail, for example. It is not going to leave the battlefield. On the other hand, you might not want to rally units in some scenarios simply so that they don't cost you as casualties. I don't know. Kind of wanted to mention a game like this that's kind of light and I can just keep pulling chits and moving things. When I've got a day, like today, a Saturday, to play it, I wander away most of the time and I'm not playing it. As opposed, I guess, you know, if I am trying to squeeze in my hour before work or whatever, I'd play something like this continuously and it would probably finish much more quickly. But the other side is when I'm playing something big, I tend to come in more often. I feel like I need to get it played. These littler games just don't grab my attention when I have a full day's time for them. They only grab my attention when I feel like, oh, I mustn't waste, you know, the hour that I have here. I have to have my fun with it, you know. Because the combat system is more complicated than the standard CRTs and, you know, the Napoleon's Art of War type games. I want to take a little bit of look see at what we accomplished here. So the French, okay, the French managed an attack here using Massena's corps, or division actually, and big odds here, 3-1. Disordered the Austrians, didn't move them. Here, only this unit succeeded in attacking, and it actually was repulsed, even though they had 3-1 odds going, but the ridge, etc., and a bad die roll combined. Here, though, the Cav managed a huge bonus. They were at 2-to-1 plus 2, with the flanking add-ons plus 5. So for the first time we got defender automatically disordered and retreat. That happened. Possible breakthrough or pursuit. Now we haven't seen how these work yet, and I kind of want to find them if I can. There we go. The result is passable breakthrough or pursuit. An advancing attacker may, if the player wishes, shock again, but without changing facing. Now the advance is only one stack. If I don't change facing, if these guys attack, they're going to have to hit up here and here. But if these guys come in, they can hit the cav again. So we'll do that. And right now, we're going to be attacking at 1-to-1. No bonus there. No bonus on anything else. We automatically, I think, succeed in the... we have no commitment roll is required. So what do we have here? Does disorder do us any good? I don't think it does, beyond whatever effect it has on the cohesion. So we make a roll, and basically what we're hoping is to do a more serious result, because that's already a disordered unit. And we get a 6, which is good. The defender takes a disorder, which is a rout in his case. And he'll be pushed back further. And because he's routed, we can shift our direction. I don't know which way to shift it. I'll shift it this way because I don't have to worry about that infantry. If that attacks me, I can run away from it. These guys, unfortunately, are stuck with their ass in the air with some light cav coming their way, such as the factors in this game. This is what I don't really like, is I feel like I'm seeing systems that fit well in more detailed games, but that they don't quite latch together correctly here. I'm not quite sure how to express it. It's because it's not far from, say, the Great Battles of History system in terms of the core of what's moving here and what's happening. But it just doesn't feel like I'm getting results that make sense. You know, I plowed through with this cav. How come this guy isn't still going? How come he stopped there? And it's all about kind of getting the angle of attacks and these little sub-actions that happen where I get a chance to move one unit. Kind of reminds me of, although nowhere near as abstracted, some of the kinds of thinking that went into the Ancient Battles Deluxe system that I covered. But this is more finicky, but in terms of the play value that I'm getting this kind of, I get to move these units and I get to set them up for an attack. Feels kind of like some dogfighting type games where you don't have pulsed movement, where you have an I go, you go type of situation. Where, Richthofen's War comes to mind. Of course, I have kicking around here somewhere. Up there. Where you get to kind of align an attack as you go, and there the zoom is kind of stuck in place now, which would be neat, except I think it was stuck trying to reverse. Anyway, I'm trying to put my finger on exactly what it is that I see wrong here, so that I can understand how to avoid it. But it really does feel like I'm lining up these little situations, and maybe I'm missing some key element of the game that, you know, maybe I shouldn't be launching the attack, the kind of attack that I did, because the threat of these units is too great or whatever. Of course, without knowing where they're going to come in the ordering, that's these guys, they've already used both their chits, and Maecenas used both theirs, so now it's a crapshoot who gets the jump on who. And that's kind of the thing, is like, okay, I got my ass wiggling out in the air, but I don't know whether or not that's going to hurt me, right? It might not. And I can kind of look at that abstraction and argue away why it's okay that that's the case, but I just don't feel like I'm seeing something that I can correlate with some sort of reality. And that's kind of a problem you get with these pulsed games. You know, and the Men of Iron series, the Great Battles of History, etc. All of them, I think, suffer from the threat of that kind of feeling happening. In both cases of Men in Iron, usually with Men of Iron, and almost always with Great Battles of History, there's enough going on that seems correct that it doesn't really gnaw at me, but in this, somehow there's not. And I'm not quite sure what it is that's preventing it. You know, that's kind of the thing. Is like, okay, there's this obvious abstraction of the movement being in pulses, but why is it bothering me here and not in other games? And I don't know the answer to that, to tell you the truth. And I'm hoping to find it as I play through the series. So far, it's kind of failing me, though. That much I can tell you. As I finish up turn 2, I move this over to turn 3. I still got to do some mechanical stuff, so let me just shift that to the in-between. I think I am beginning to realize it, the thing that's troubling me. So the Austrian forces had a couple of activations on these guys. I can't launch against someone using restricted movement values, but I can. I could shock attack if I wanted to, and I have kind of a flank attack here that might have been appealing, but I chose not to do it. These guys, hard to pull out. I could get either one out through this hex, but I think that the positioning I have is stronger in terms of holding the French off. And that's kind of where it comes, is I've got these little individual pieces, and all I'm worried about is this kind of geometrical positioning. In the same sort of fashion that you worry about geometry so much in a game like Africa Corps. Now, with Africa Corps, I feel like I've got a very simple game. I never used to like that style of game, but I've grown more fond of it, where you're worrying about the geometrical positioning of the units tremendously, and you worry about that a lot in Ancient Battles Deluxe. You don't worry about that so much in Great Battles of History, even in Men of Iron. But here I feel like I'm very much worried about the geometry and placement of my pieces so that I can fall back. It may just be this scenario, but I think it's in general. I think we'll see, at least on the localized level, the same kind of feeling happening again and again. And that's what I think I do not like. I can see, and unlike in Ancient Battles Deluxe, which is, and probably the Napoleonic 20 series, although I haven't gotten around to that yet, very, very much a small, not a lot to do, but a lot of thinking in terms of the positioning of your units. Very much focused towards the competitive player. And I would say, in a sense, Africa Corps is the same kind of thing, although you have more pieces. Very much this, okay, how can I get my edge on the enemy without really worrying about what I'm doing tactically in some real-life world that's being represented by the game. I don't feel like I have that problem, certainly not in Great Battles of History. In Men of Iron, much less so. Every now and then I see a position where I'm like, oh yeah, he has to be in that hex because he's covering this and preventing this attack and this, that, and the other. Where I'm very much worrying about that. And here, though, it feels like it's overwhelming things. And that's fine for the kinds of games that are very, very light, and where that's what you're doing. You're playing a game of geometric tactics against one another. But here, and not really representative, whether or not they come out historically accurate or not, Ancient Battles Deluxe, I think, is more accurate than Great Battles of History, for example, but less detailed and giving me less of the story. This isn't giving me the story terribly. I'm making that geometric action, but it is far too involved. And what it reminds me of there, I don't know if I mentioned this yet, is the Eagles of Empire stuff, where I'm worrying so much about how the terrain works and how I can fit the exact units and try to get everything in there. And I don't feel like I'm getting anything about the reality, anything more than Napoleon's Art of War, or Napoleon at Waterloo, about the reality of the situation that I'm really seeing. I feel like all I'm doing is playing a themed game on the subject for the most part. And it's funny, because Berg writes that this is a game more about more about being a game than about being an accurate simulation. Now, sometimes when he says that, I'm terrified and I look at the game. What comes to mind there is his Revolutionary War thing. I'm trying to see if I can find it. Turning Point here. Now, that has almost no simulation value at all. This one, at least, I feel like it is trying to simulate and represent. It just doesn't feel like the cogs are hitting correctly, right? It's not getting the grip on the matter at hand. Unlike the Turning Point game, or unlike Ancient Battles Deluxe, which I think is actually getting the grip on the historical outcomes well, without giving me the feel of being the commander at all. This feels like I'm doing a lot of mechanical fiddly stuff, or mentally fiddly stuff, without it cutting to the chase of the competitive game, as well as failing to give me that story that I like in a more detailed simulation. Beyond that, I'm not sure. I've got that, okay, I'm putting pressure on this flank, and now the big randomness, instead of being the die roll on the CRT, is going to be the order of the chit pulls. It may just be that, my mind is so trained by the traditional war game that I can't see what's going on here in that kind of intuitive grasping sort of way. Maybe that's the same thing that happens with the Eagles of Empire. I trashed the hell out of Friedland on many different planes, but the biggest one is I don't feel like I'm getting any information about how battles were actually fought. I feel very similar to that. So maybe the fans of Friedland and the Eagles of Empire would actually love this system. I don't know. All right, what's the mechanical stuff I've got to do here? Reserve. Do we want to do a reserve movement? Napoleon does not have first choice. Wormster does. He may. Give me another chance to pull out. Now, I haven't taken that chance with these pieces. His range is 2 hexes, so you could get this command a little further out of the way. Given the disorder checks, I don't know if it's a great idea. And given that I did not withdraw with these, now if I'd held off, I could. What about Napoleon? Does he want to do it? This guy. Oh, this is the infantry back here. Tough call. Okay. So let's say I don't. We have a routed unit left? No, this thing was routed, but it recovered during one of its activations. Am I not allowed to recover if I'm next to? If so, I screwed up. Nope. So he is routed. I shouldn't have removed him. So now what happens? Route movement step. Routed units move their full disordered movement allowance towards the nearest designated retreat hex. I hope I can't win by routing off the board. That would piss me off. I don't know why. Okay, I'm not really seeing retreat hexes, so I think I'm going to have to pull back, and I'll come back with that. Sorry about all the chattering on this one, but I am exploring the new system, and there's things that are really bugging me about it, and I want to try to capture them. Whether or not I'll get to them in the review, who the hell knows. Find a specified route space for the Austrians, but I'm going to assume they're trying to get off the same direction. I did find, however, A, units that route off the map are counted as destroyed. B, the scenario specifies non-routed units are the only ones that give victory points for leaving. And maybe there's a C, maybe there's not. So this guy's got to run away. He only has 5 movement points now. And if he gets away without, without stopping, he's going to be counted in the dead pile. Right now there's not enough in the dead pile, nor are there many routed units at all on the map, that I don't have to worry about unit collapse, I don't think. Although pink is awfully small. I'm going to count this unit towards pink even though he's attached over there, because otherwise that's like 2/3 for collapse, isn't it? So it doesn't really make a difference. I don't know where the collapse rules are. There we go. Yeah. Either routed or eliminated. All right. And that'll move us to turn 3, I think. Let's check the sequence of play, make sure I remember it correctly. I got the chance to move the overall commanders. Well, definitely. Wormster, where does he want to give his bonus? I probably want to try to get these guys out of here, but do I want to try to... He gives a slight bonus, a -1 to the activation, things he's close to. So if he was close to these guys, he could maybe run them out of there. Run them up to attack more easily, because they can't charge otherwise. And these guys as well. His range is only 2 hexes. He's not going to be able to get both commands under his activation. So I'm going to place him, I think, here, where he gets both this command and this command under his activation. And then Bonaparte, well, I got to keep moving him. No question there. I've got both the brown and the orange kind of intermingled. The infantry back here, it's going to be hard to get them under command. They're going to be using the die roll. From what I can understand, you only roll the die once. You don't divide it into... so if part of the command's out of command and part of it's in, you don't divide it into lots of different separate little commands and roll for all of them. You just... They're either in command or not. They're either part of the in-command activation group, or I'm sorry, command group or orders group, or they're part of the guys who roll for a die. And if there's multiple, it really doesn't matter. Might as well. See, I don't want to have him stacked. It doesn't really do any good to do so, and it makes it harder for me to deal with the pieces. He's as good there as he is anywhere. What the hell are these things? Oh, those came in this turn, that's why. All right, on to the next turn. The French are able to win the initiative and basically succeed completely against the Austrian position up here near Solferino. Charging against some guns here. I didn't see this when I left this hex. I opened up a space and a couple of guns were destroyed that way. We still don't have any other units being destroyed particularly easily, although I got a Jaeger. They apparently don't get disordered. They have less staying power than I'd like. I probably should have withdrawn it right away. Cav spun around to face the enemy. That way, if I do charge that Cav, it gets to countercharge. Alternatively, if I try to use my Cav to flank, well, that can succeed, but the odds are pretty low of that Cav being able to handle the infantry. And the infantry could always go into square and make life... Well, I don't think they can go into square unless there's a charge. I was going to say, oh, shit. I don't have enough room for my charts here, the way I'm set up. I think square may only be allowed if you're charging. Yep. It's all kind of weird because the Cav can attack without charging and a square doesn't help, and that doesn't... And you can't go into square. And if anything, you should be more easily capable of going into square if Cav is attacking you without the charge impetus, you would think. I'm not quite sure why those choices were made. Again, I may pick up the Borodino rules and use them instead. later, see if there's any differences there. I just hate rereading the rules again, and I didn't realize the Bardino rules were essentially the same series until I looked for errata for this, when I started seeing, hey, wait a minute, I'm missing some units which I wasn't missing for this battle. Austrians able to get a little bit of a pullback here, and then the one in command, automatically in command unit. The artillery bombarded these, disordered them, and then I did a cav charge, which disordered the Austrians. You know, I'm only at like a +2 on the attack because there's no bonus, but I could do worse to the enemy if he's disordered by routing him or something. So I kind of had hopes that I would be able to do more damage to him and buy myself some more time that way. Augura was in kind of an interesting situation where part of the command was out of command, essentially, and they didn't get their successful roll. We had some rallies happen that were helpful, but otherwise we pushed back these disordered units here. Ooh, my camera's working a little better right now. And I actually got breakthroughs in both these attacks, but in both cases I would have had to attack more units than I wanted to, worse odds than I wanted to. So we held off, figuring we'll just kind of wear them down. They're not going to be able to run very fast. You'll notice that disordered movement allowances are lower than formed unit allowances. Massena's troops down here are getting another, got another activation, and they're chopping their way through most of these Austrians, but there was a repulse here. These guys actually defended them. No, the guys in the woods defended themselves. The routed unit was destroyed. We got to kind of keep an eye on what we're losing there, but so far we're racking up the score. But if the Austrians can pull out, remember, each unit they withdraw has to be counted against one of these units. I guess kind of the thing is, though, that the Austrians probably cannot move as quickly as the French can. They're less their commanders are less effective in general. Not all of them, but some of them. So just in terms of the activation number, if they're not the unit under command, so they're less likely to be able to move full speed. However that ends up working out, we'll see. Seeing actual lines beginning to form here. The game takes, sorry about that, I was hoping I could hold it in place. The game's beginning to take somewhat of a less of a geometric feel to it. One of the problems with Africa Corps, for example, is that you have little stacks of units off operating on their own. I felt this with Ancient Battles Deluxe too. Once you kind of have lines, it's harder to break them. By the way, the Austrians threw some cav, took out an artillery piece up here. I don't know what that does for them. Probably not a good move. Okay, now it's not working at all. Neat. This poor camera. It's probably a really terrible thing because the cav is now exposed out here. But it is light cav, so it's got a chance of pulling out. And taking that gun out seemed like a cool idea at the time. If this was a regular normal battle, where you're trying to defeat the enemy instead of withdraw with the most force you can, knocking something like that out would be a good choice. In this situation, though, it's not so certain. This feels more like an ASL or a squad leader type of scenario. Some of the ones where, hey, you got to get off the map in a certain amount of time, or you just got to do this one little thing. It makes sense in the context of this situation, but it does generate kind of a weird... The victory conditions generate some weird behavior that maybe isn't so valid. Whether or not risking this cav in order to take out what is really a weak little artillery piece, whether that's worthwhile. Okay, there we go. Is, debatable in and of itself. I'm hoping I can get out of there, though, because this is heavy cav here. which means if it tries to attack this, it can get out. It can't get out of there. The problem, though, would be if Augureau is activated next, because he could get behind it, and according to the 2.0 version of the rules, you can't withdraw through enemy zones of control. I think that applies to retreats too, but that's not clear in the... I haven't been able to find that in the rules. Maybe it's clear somewhere. I haven't been able to find it. Okay, we actually have a unit that's been wrecked here. I'll flip that over. It's really tough to do a fighting withdrawal, and that's actually something that I have to say I'm happy about with this system. What I've seen in so many games, for whatever reason, the Civil War, maybe it makes more sense there, but even in your Napoleonic sort of classic Napoleon at Waterloo type thing, it was just so easy to get out of the battle with your units. They have the same movement point either way or whatever. Here it's kind of tough. They have this penalty to get out of the zones of control. Well, there you can't get out of the zones of control. That's the difference. So it was tough there too, once you're fully engaged. But here, by having the movement allowances reduced when you're disordered, for having the penalty for getting out of the zones of control, it makes it kind of tough to fall back and to withdraw the way the Austrians really need to in this scenario, and they haven't really had an easy chance. By trying to hold on to, positions, units that are in key positions that are kind of flung a little forward, they've been having some trouble, and they actually made some counterattacks. Now they've killed another unit. They lost their cav, though, the one that was here. That got swamped by Augureau. I think that was bound to happen. Do I want to, commit a reserve for this, is the question. And I'm not sure I have a chit for this. I don't know who he's assigned to in this scenario. But he's all that's left of that command. And I kind of like him to be assigned to the other command he was with. So that's 4 Hess or something like that, but I don't know if I can find that. 4 Hussars probably. That's part of Lipday's command. It's part of this green stuff. So right now there's actually nothing under that pink command. But he's a permanently wrecked unit just because his actual parent company is destroyed. This one I think is at half. Looks like I got these guys under there. So if I can find the sequence applied, hey, here it is on the back of the rules. Awesome. I can see the other thing. So I've got the option of reserve. Now, do I want to do this? I can't pull these guys back because they're not in range of the leader, if I recall correctly. The reserve is only allowed. Yeah, it's only allowed if you're in command radius of your leader. So I wouldn't have the opportunity to pull the guys back that I'd actually maybe want to take a chance with, and everybody else is in kind of an okay place. Now, as to trying to push forward the attack with the reserves, I don't think that's necessary. Napoleon's good enough. And that he can assign a couple of wings to full command. It's unlikely the Austrians are going to assign this. If they do, there's other things I can pick on. So I'd rather not take all those disorder checks that I would have to take. The only exception is if I have damaged units. That might be worth calling a reserve for, but I don't within range of Bonaparte. So we did the collapse. There's no routing units, and now it's replacing the overall commander positioning. Just fling him forward a little bit more. I'm not quite sure where I want Wormser, because if he's over here, he can help. He can use the reserve movement to get the hell out of there. Except I'm not sure reserve can be used if you it's probably not in here either. Activation from reserve is 6. There we go. Is that page? I think so. Oh, the initiative player gets to choose who goes first with the reserves. Which player gets to go first? Yeah, I can't do it to units that are... I can't do it for a withdrawal. So I think kind of where I am isn't bad. I probably want to commit it there. Yeah. All right. Might actually want to pull these guys out under the reserve rolls. Give more ground. Seems like a good idea. One thing I have to note, I've got Fiorella available on his next order. I'm going to put that here to try to remind me of that. That's something that's not standard to the system. That's just this scenario has this weird, at least as far as I know, it's not standard. This scenario has this weird kind of entry situation where your units may not come in when you have to roll for, well, yeah, essentially above their command rating for some reason. I'm gonna send this one up. I think it's long enough, and God knows how much longer this is gonna take because it's a long way back to the retreat lines, and there still are a lot of unrouted Austrians on the map.